been more than 50 years since the Nazis came. Now he's come home to the place he loves and the place he fears. Has anything changed? Or nothing at all? Tonight on Frontline, producer Marian Marzynski travels to Poland to search for remnants of the lives and memories of an entire Jewish village, a Shtetl, lost in the Holocaust.
This is Poland, the country where my Jewish ancestors lived for centuries. Before World War II, 85% of all Jews had their roots in this part of the world. Then, 6 million Jews lost their lives in the Holocaust. I was among the few survivors, a child hidden by Christians in Warsaw. My war began in a horse wagon. In 1942, I was smuggled from the Warsaw ghetto to the Christian side of the city. I was sitting in the carriage with a woman guide, her hand over my mouth, as I struggled to scream. I want to go back to the ghetto. I want to go back to Mommy. In the ghetto, a massive deportation of Jewish children to the death camps had just started. On the Christian side of town, Germans posted notices of death penalties for hiding a Jew. My hideouts were Warsaw courtyards. I called people who took care of me my aunts and uncles. Their children pretended to be my cousins. But the game was over when a friendly neighbor said rather loudly for everyone in the courtyard to hear, "I don't remember anybody in their family looking like him." And I had to go. When all doors had closed, my mother took the elevator up to the top floor of 59 Mokotowska Street. She was going to open the window and jump and take me with her. But she couldn't. Then she made a decision. She brought me to this courtyard of a Christian charity organization in the hope that I would be sent to an orphanage. She gave me a brown bag with my favorite sugar sandwich. She hung a cardboard sign around my neck. "My name is Marish. My parents are dead." She watched me carefully from across the street, fearing that I would run after her. I didn't. I stood still. I survived the war, but 90% of my family didn't. Some of them died in the Warsaw ghetto. Others were killed in this little town called Łęczyca, where the history of our family was written. Before the war, most Jews lived in places like this. They called them Shtetl, a little town in Yiddish. In the 25 years I lived in Poland after the war, I returned only once to Łęczyca, in 1969. But when I started asking questions about those in my family who were killed and those who betrayed them, I couldn't take it. I decided never to return to my shtetl. I left for America with the image of shtetl life frozen in time. It smelled of death. Another 25 years have passed. I find a way to enter this haunted world of my ancestors. My friend from Chicago is searching for his Jewish roots. It's easier for him. He was born in America. He never lived in Poland. I feel secure with him leading the way. I will be his translator. This is he, Nathan Kaplan. We are going to his family's shtetl, a place called Bransk, 100 kilometers east of Warsaw, near the Russian border. Nathan was 2 years old when his father died. I have no memory of my father, he told me. It's only by going to Bransk that I can touch him, that I can understand who I am. Nathan wants me to ask a fellow passenger, what does he know about the Jews who once lived in Poland?
He says that they talk about Jews differently. They know they were Jews, that they mainly were in commerce, that they were taking care of the commerce.
Że w lesie tutaj jest taka puszcza u nas i w tej puszczy tam babcia powiedziała, że pokowani są Żydzi. Jest taki lasek żydowski, tak się nazywa. Jest takie miejsce.
A jak oni zginęli?
No nie, to Niemcy ich mordowali tam właśnie, są pozapływani.
He also knows that there is a little forest where their graves of where the Jews were buried dead there, and then they were killed by the Germans. He knows that. Nearby here.
The fellow behind you, and see, he's old enough to remember some things.
You are at the age you should know something, I pursue. I'm only 50, he replies. And your father, I ask? He passed away, he answers. But when he was alive, he never talked about it. 2 years ago, Nathan Kaplan sent a letter to Bransk, asking for information about his family. A few weeks later, he got a reply from someone who worked in the town hall. Dear Mr. Kaplan, there are no Jews in Bransk today, but I am a Pole whose family has lived here for generations, and I have an interest in Jews. I'd like to help you. I am trying to recreate my family's life in Bransk, replies Nathan. I know my grandmother washed clothes in the river and walked on a cobblestone path to the mikveh. My mother was born in a one-room cabin. Would you know how these homes were furnished? Did people sleep on straw? Were there wolves in the forest? Were there bandits in the forest? Dear Nathan, comes the answer. Your mother lived in very interesting times. Bransk had 3 marketplaces. Polish farmers from 60 villages sold corn, potatoes, eggs, horses, cattle, sheep and poultry. In the market square, all the houses belonged to the Jews. In those houses, Jewish tailors, shoemakers, bakers, and sellers of fancy goods had their shops. Signed, Zbyszek Romaniuk.
Witam panów serdecznie. Troszeczkę u nas pada. How do you do?
My young friend and our great hope. I came to see my young friend.
Dziękuję bardzo.
You speak English?
O, bardzo słabo, wolę.
Well, try to talk with him.
There have been over 100 letters exchanged over a 2-year period between the 70-year-old Jewish man from Chicago and this mysterious 29-year-old Gentile from Bransk. I wonder who he is and why he does it. There is no hotel in Bransk. Zbyszek has invited us home. His parents will sleep outside in a tent so that we can stay in their bedroom.
W Polsce jest nawet takie powiedzenie: gość w dom, Bóg w dom.
There is a say in Polish, the guest in your home is like God in your home. The guest is God. That's the... You wanna write it down?
Yes.
To jest niesamowite, że ty to mi przypomniałeś, bo to chyba nikt... It has to do with the fact that if you know well how to receive a guest in your home, that you have a God blessing.
I wrote also that we met at the station and what my greetings to him were, and that he may be a dreamer, but not to my face he's a dreamer. I see him as a practical person who knows what he wants to do and how to go about it.
That's very nice to hear, says Zbyszek, but I am not sure I deserve it. Real warmth here, Nathan will write in his diary. Zbyszek's mother is a husky woman. Her eyes sparkle with love.
Long live democracy in Poland.
Niech żyje demokracja w Polsce!
The Jewish quarter was just behind their window, reads Nathan's diary. The pastoral setting is silent about the past sorrow. In a house much like this one, writes Nathan, my grandparents lived and my mother was born.
Four children in this house. My mother was next to the youngest. In the summertime, the women came here and did their laundry and talked to each other. In the wintertime, the people ice skated here. The Polish fishermen caught fish, and the Jewish women would come to buy the fish to prepare for Friday night's dinner. Did I mention the ice? Okay. The winter they took out the ice, carved out the ice for storage, wrapped it in straw for storage. The water for the Jewish bathhouse, which included the mikveh, was drawn from here and was emptied in here.
Zbyszek collects photographs of old Bransk. This is the river as your mother would remember it, Zbyszek tells Nathan. Wider and less polluted.
The original house. Okay, and then the synagogue where?
All 5 synagogues in Bransk were destroyed during the war. Nathan wants to know precisely where each of them stood.
Tam jest druga, było jak, proszę pana, na Targowicę się jedzie.
Tak, tam był
Pan pamięta?
metraż.
Tak,
Ile pan ma lat?
68.
O, to może pan pamiętać.
Tutaj była metraż, naprzeciw.
Another synagogue on this side.
Chyba raczej gdzieś tutaj.
Tutaj, tak.
Tak, jedna tu, druga tu.
A ta księcia po nazwisku Żydów? Wspomina pan jakie?
W sobotę zawsze to spacerowali po szosie tam za miastem.
Saturday they would walk, long walks.
Tak.
Czy pani pamięta ich jako ludzi biednych czy zamożnych?
Różnie było, jak to było tak u Żydów, że oni jak na sobotę, to oni w piątek
The difference between Poles and the Jews were that the Poles were rich and poor, but the Jews were continuously collecting for their poor. And the Poles always could not understand that they are doing this because they say in our community, if someone is poor, it gets poorer, nobody will help them.
The only synagogue that survived the war in this area is in Orla, on the Russian border. Ten years ago, a renovation project began with limited funds from the government. But in the last 5 years, because of lack of financial support, the synagogue is deteriorating.
I tell you, what he's telling me is just incredible, because it was first neglected, it was totally destroyed, and then in the last 10 years, there's nothing but stupidities that are being done to this place. A wrong way of reconstructing. The things they are discovered and then stolen. The glass is gone, the door is gone, the fresque. Then some students come and do some reconstruction.
Zbyszek, who never learned at school that Jews ever lived in Bransk, discovered on his own that before the war, Jews made up 60% of the Bransk population. Tracing their history became an intellectual adventure for Zbyszek. He has gathered his own Jewish archive. During the demolition of one of the old houses in Bransk, some school children found 3 fragments of Torah and brought them to Zbyszek.
וילך משה יושב על יחר אנוכי גם מחלו גם משלמים חג עוז דבריך על עבדיך כי כבוד פה כבד לשון Anochi v'yomer.
Today is pig killing day in Bransk. I've killed 30,000 pigs in my life, boss Fabian, an old-timer, and he introduces himself as an expert on Jews and economics. A Jew owned the bank, explained Fabian. When a Polish farmer needed to borrow money, he had to come to the Jew for it. The rate was 2% per month. That means 24% per year, I figure. Do you know that Polish banks charge 60% today? You see, that's the Jewish way, says Fabian. A Jew looks at the pig and says, I will give you 2 zlotys per kilo. Not enough, says the Polish farmer, and the Jew goes away. The next day, another Jew comes and offers a zloty and a half for the pig, and the farmer refuses again. Then the first Jew comes on the 3rd day and buys the pig for 2 zlotys. That's how cunning they were. That's how cunning.
No nie
Nic
pan.
złego nie mam takiego.
No właśnie.
Poobcowałem z nimi, w piłkę graliśmy, siatkę razem i na instrumentach grało ze mnie dwóch Żydówków i...
Niech pan coś zaśpiewa. Pamięta pan coś? Co się grało? Co się u nich grało?
Co się grało? Dlaczego panie sobie tam... Nie. No wie pan, już nie mam takiego głosu.
Bransk is no longer a hidden world to me, writes Nathan in his journal. I'm touching the places my parents touched. I walk on the ground they walked on. Nathan is like a sponge. He is overwhelmed by information he cannot sort out. He absorbs it all. My eye is on Zbyszek. The Jewish subject was a taboo when I lived in Poland during the communist era. But even now, in a small town like Bransk, it takes guts to advertise this type of interest. As long as he collects remnants of Jewish life, he is safe. But what about when he touches on Jewish death? In 1942, the Germans fenced in the Jewish quarter with barbed wire and created a Jewish ghetto. At the edge of it was this mill. The miller's name is Jan Olszewski. Today he is 96 years old and blind. Before the war, a Jewish merchant sold him grain. The name of the merchant was Morris Goldwasser. Goldwasser's son lives in Chicago. He is a friend of Nathan's. This is Nathan from Bransk, I make the introduction. He knows the son of Goldwasser. Nathan lives in America. He is 72, not that young. You can touch him. I can tell he's an older man. I can feel his stubble, says Olszewski. Nathan knows the son of Goldwasser, who lives in Chicago and who is a doctor, I repeat. Olszewski has witnessed the deportation of the Goldwasser family from the ghetto.
Złapał, ucałował mnie, wyjął z kieszeni, pokazał już, ja zaraz tylko z Branska. Taki zrobił. Żonę i Solecki i siebie. Podjechali tylko pod Bielsk i gotowe na morze. Samobójstwa, czy otrucie. Naukę tam.
On wyjął truciznę, tak?
Truciznę.
I pokazał, że on
tak powiedział. I mnie złapał w pół, o tak, oj, i za szyję. Niech Pana Bóg chowa. O, tak. Panie drogi, że ja normalnie, to ja się dziwię. Na to patrzeć, co tu się działo. Jak tu się działo, Pan sobie nie wyobraża. Pan sobie nie może wyobrazić tak niszczenia ludzkości.
As a part of the plan to erase the Jewish past, the Germans ordered Poles to remove the gravestones from the Jewish cemetery in Bransk. Most of them were used as underpavement for local roads and sidewalks, like this one around the Catholic parish in Bransk. When Zbyszek learned about it, he asked the priest for permission to break up the concrete and retrieve the gravestones. The priest agreed under the condition that Zbyszek will be responsible for repaving the sidewalk. But I have one request, says the priest. When you show this film, make sure in your commentary that it is clear that the Germans did this, not the Poles.
Proszę.
O napis jest. Jest.
Zaraz odczytamy, kto jest pogrzebany. O, był pęknięty. I tu jest potrzaskany cały.
Trzeba sklejać.
Kobieta pochowana była, widzę już.
Skąd ty wiesz?
Świecznik. Fragment świecznika.
To się da skleić.
Inny typ zupełnie.
Tak.
Czy to jest inny okres?
O, to się da skleić.
Gdzieś musi blokować tego fragmentu. Nie wiem.
Do góry i na lewo idź do siebie i połóż tam gdzie tamta leży, przed tą, na wierzchu. Tam, oprzyj o tamtą, tak.
Trzeba ją obmyć, to lepiej. Trochę może chociaż na razie szmatą.
Nie.
Uszkodzone trochę, no ale już góra się uchwyci.
Tak.
Zaraz żeby światło dobrze, bo
to nic i tak widać.
Tu jest światło. Aha, pan to od razu odbije. To może w takim razie jeszcze wodą, żeby lepiej było tu.
Nie, to się w tej chwili nie da.
Co to jest?
Krem do golenia.
A o tak.
To jest dosyć głęboki napis, także tutaj się sprawdzi na tym.
I zaraz odbije się dobrze.
Zbyszek has learned some Hebrew to be able to read the inscriptions on the graves.
Nigbar. Nehamen, Batref, Josif.
Czekaj do golenia. No, ale będzie patrzeć, to teraz wykrzyć, żeby to stało tylko tu czarna, to białe, to lepiej jest.
Postaw na tym.
No nie, wystarczy może.
Koszmatko
Możesz zakręcić teraz. Taf, Reish, Ein i Haf. Hej, hej. Tychej Nysznato Czura Biror Hachai. Tu spoczywa kobieta skromna, zmarła w młodym wieku, pani Szawa, córka pana Eliela, zmarła 16 miesiąca Elul, 1905 lub 15, w tej chwili trudno jest przeliczyć. I jest jeszcze na końcu abrewiacja, niech jej dusza ma udział w życiu wiecznym, przyszłym.
To his search for stolen gravestones, Zbyszek recruited a friend, a local school teacher, and his students. The latest tip came from this farm. According to the farmer's son, 2 Jewish gravestones lie on the ground. One is at the entrance to the pigsty, and another one by the stable. cut into a circle for use as a grinding wheel.
Przeszykowane do szenia.
Fantastyczny.
To na pewno.
Nie, to nie jest ciężkie.
Czekaj.
To nie jest ciężkie.
No spróbuj przeczytać, czekaj.
Zaraz zobaczymy przed ścianą prawą. Odwrotnie trzeba będzie.
These stones mean a lot to Zbyszek. One of his projects is the compilation of the list of Jewish families who lived in Bransk in the 19th century.
Haja, córka.
But I wonder what meaning these stones have for a woman who is old enough to remember the Jews.
Dawida.
Do they remind her of the Jewish death she witnessed during the war?
A ile takich było, że w Chojewie, to kiedyś to płynęli że kojek niech złoto zabrali, a te nie puszczali do rzeki.
Zabierali i puszczali do rzeki.
A jak? A jak wieźli kiedyś tędy, też pamiętam Żydów do Niemców sznurkami powiązani.
Przez tą drogą na oczach.
Tak.
Nie, tu nie ma ciężkie. Dobra. A jak sobie poradzimy? Takie. Nie dźwigaliśmy, tak?
No, robaki masz na ryby potem się.
This is the result of 2 years of collecting gravestones by Zbyszek and his friend. They have been carrying them to the old Jewish cemetery, from where the original stones were all stolen. "175 gravestones separated from the bodies they once marked make up this exhibit. Zbyszek calls it a lapidarium, a museum of stones. For Nathan and me, these stones are alive. This is a roll call of the dead. For the Kaplans, the Rubins, the Idels, the Finkelsteins, the Tykockis. When World War II started, there were 2,500 of them in this town.
I Israel outside Kobe, I'll call Dicklison, Minholma, Kadev, Gerasel, Delom, Ye, Loco, Aranoi Shalom Rabba, Aranoi.
On November 8, 1942, Germans rounded up the Jews of Bransk. They ordered Polish farmers to provide 500 horse wagons to transport 2,500 Jews to the nearby train station. Within 24 hours, the Jews of Bransk died in the gas chambers of Treblinka. Only 300 of them were able to escape. Nathan wants to meet people who remember what happened to Jews who went into hiding.
O, proszę pana, z Żydami to było źle. Źle było z Żydami. Tak, że się kryli Żydzi tutaj. Proszę pana, kryli się. No, niektóre wydawali Żydów, niektóre trzymali. No wie pan, za te żółte. No ale było źle.
Czym oni płacili za kryjówki?
Dolary? Złoto. Ale u jacyś pani...
His name is Józef Skowroński. I ask him about the deportation of the Jews. He tells me that after the Jews left, the Germans ordered the Poles to demolish some of their houses and offered building materials for sale. Skowroński was one of the buyers, but he was looking for other bargains as well.
A u tego Żyda to ja kupiłam materiał, bo to był z manufakturą sklep. Ja wziął łoma, chodzę, tak opukam. Patrzę, coś puka. Tutaj. To ja co pazurami grab. Odkrywam takie 2 kotły. Takie. A tam byli materiały różne. Futra karakułowe byli, futra teraz tych foków byli. Proszę pana, było tam część biżuterii. No, przywieźliśmy tutaj, podzieliliśmy, ten dostał 4 futra było i takie rzeczy różne. 4 futra podzielili tak futra i ja wziął, bo ja znalazł karakułowe futro. Proszę pana, ja wziął karakułowe futro. Otóż widzisz pan, było źle, nasłali Niemców, co ty wziął? Ja mówię, wziął futro, bo ja znalazł i wziął. A co więcej wziął? Nic. A proszę pana, takie pudełko było i tam było srebrne łyżki, widelce, noże. I ja to wziął, oni nie widzieli tego. Przyszli Niemca, co było więcej? Ja mówię nic. Mów co było. Lub mnie w mordę. Musiał oddać.
As soon as we leave Skowroński, Zbyszek Romaniuk has a revelation for me. After the war, Skowroński was accused of giving up Jews to the Germans. After I finished conversation with the guy, our friend Romaniuk says that he has enough evidence from Yad Vashem that this guy that he gave $5 to gave up the full room of Jews to Germans. He has an evidence in Yad Vashem. The guy gave up, I don't know, 30, 20, the bunker full of Jews to the Germans. It's blowing my mind. I cannot believe it. So I went to the guy and I asked him, are you the only guy under this name? He said, yes. Did you live all your life over there? He says, yes. And I came back to, and so of course I don't want to confront him. But that is how tragic is this whole thing.
I can't even think. Everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. I can't. There's nothing in life that connects with this. What we have here. This this revelation of righteousness and evil.
Nathan wants to believe the best in people.
Dzień dobry. Chciałem spytać, gdzie pan Skowroński mieszka? Skowroński.
But in my pocket, I am carrying depositions from several Jews accusing Skowroński of betraying them to the Nazis. I decide we have to see Skowroński again.
Od środka do nich tak, co dzień inny człowiek szedł do pomocy im, krowy ganiać.
O panu.
Tak? Ale może nie dokładnie. Ja mówię,
Świadek zeznaje o zbrodni dokonanej przez Skowrońskiego Józefa, zamieszkałego we wsi Rudki, gmina Brańsk, powiat. W lesie Kąpa Olęcka, niedaleko wsi Olendy, gmina Brańsk, należącym do rudzkiej żandarmerii, w schronisku pod dębem schowali się Żydzi Orlański, Mojsze.
Tak. O mnie?
Kłamstwo.
Proszę pana.
Coś to było dochodzenie, on aresztowany.
A było dochodzenie, aresztowanie, uniewinili pana.
Proszę pana. Zaraz ja będę mówił.
He's not guilty. There was a man whose name was close to his. He knew it.
Zmienione nazwisko.
He was interrogated. He proved his innocence.
Panie.
So this is a false accusation.
Widzisz pan, jakie fałszywe rzeczy.
Fałszywe, false accusation.
Proszę pana, tu był, przetłumę, Józef Sowiński.
Józef Skowroński, Sowiński.
O tak, to była tak.
I mnie aresztowali.
He was arrested.
Tak.
Ja będę panu mówił pomału, niech panu,
Tłumacz.
czemu panu temu, proszę pana.
I am a poor man, but I'm a righteous man, says Skowroński.
Proszę pana, o mojej opinii on zaświadczy.
Apparently, I have accused the wrong man. But somebody did it, says Nathan.
Tylko niech pan nie nagra tego, bo jak ja będę mówić o Polakach, bo ja słyszałam, że teraz chodzi taka wiadomość po ludziach, że chodzi wywiad. Rozumiem, że taki wywiad chodzi i proszę pana, jak ja by zaczęła panu opowiadać, ja znałam tego chłopa, co Żydów zamęczył. Ja znam taką babę, co Żydów tam oni zabili, czy zabili, ja nie wiem. Tylko ja słyszałam. O, ja by ją dzisiaj pokazała panu, ale o, ja do niej nie pójdę do chaty. O.
Ona żyje?
Żyje baba, żyje ta baba. I ona mnie teraz zaczepiła, ta baba. A ja mówię, ja Żydów nie zabijała, ja Żydów nie sprzedawała, ja im chleb dawała, a ty będziesz jeszcze mnie mówić.
A dlaczego ona zaczepiła panią?
Bo rozumie pan, ja panu powiem. Ona powiedziała, że ja handluję wódką. A ja mówię, jak ja handluję wódką, ale Żydów nie sprzedała tak jak ty i nie zabijałam. Wódka to teraz wolny handel. O, ja już i teraz wódką nie handluję. Był jakiś okres, a teraz już nie. Proszę pana, bo ja już nie mam siły, ja chora jestem. Tak. Tutaj prosto ten dom, co stoi. A tych Żydów jak z tego getta wybierali. Ja i w getcie byłam. Jeśli pan, że nie byłam w getcie, to poszłam do Żydów, do getta. Ale mnie Niemiec spotkał. Ja się wytłumaczyła, że ja przyszła kartofle kupić do Żydów. O tak ja się tłumaczyłam, bo się bałam. Co pan myśli? A to wszystko tędy szło przez mój plac. Oni się tu u nas wylęgli, moja rodzina cała z Żydami pracowała. Pamiętam. Taki był tutaj na tym. Oni tędy wszystko lecieli, a ten chleb ja chowała tutaj. No, proszę pana, Jankiel Wojtek był, to ten syn jego, Ślomek przychodził. Teraz taki był Dówcie, Żydziak też, tego, jak on się nazywa, no, ten.
Żyd to był tyle wart, co zając na polowaniu myśliwca. Jak zobaczył Niemiec Żyda, to strzelał jak do zająca. I on był zadowolony na każdym kroku. Tak.
No a jak to było patrzeć na to?
Muś było patrzeć. Tak, panie.
No to przecież się chyba na płacz zbierało człowiekowi, jak widział to.
A Niemcy, jak się dowiedzieli, że u pana byli Żydzi, to pan zginął. W Wąpicach, tu byli u jednego tam w chlebie Żydzi, no to jak wzięli, to gospodarz zginął. Do obozu i pojechał, więc nie wrócił.
Czyli człowiek nic nie mógł zrobić?
A nie był radki.
A wydawali niektórzy Niemcom?
Wyjątek to jest wielki wyjątek. Żyd to był bezwartościowy no człowiek, to jak mucha na ścianie, o mucha sadziło za Żydów.
A Jew was like a fly.
Z Żydem.
Sometimes in life, events awaken us to new perceptions of ourselves.
We return to the parish because Nathan wants to ask the priest about Polish-Jewish relations during the war.
Now, here is Bransk, who in a way is a symbol of every town. What great realization has come to this town as a result of the events of Nazi occupation?
Today?
Yes.
how does it affect their lives and their thinking and their hearts?
Ale jak najbardziej właśnie.
The trick is to live as close as possible to the teaching of the church, answered the priest. Everybody had family, father, mother, children. They had to choose. With those who kept Jews, it was more than ordinary life. It was heroism. According to God's law, I can love my brother more than myself, but I don't have to. I'm not talking about those who were doing it for money or gold, some of whom perished as well, but those who kept the Jews with pure intentions were taking risks. Although the priest privately compliments Zbyszek on his Jewish research, he refuses to discuss it in the church or to give Zbyszek public support. In Zbyszek's house, we learn that there are other clouds over this young man's head. His mother, who helped him gather information about the Jews from older people, has run into some resistance. She met just a moment ago a man who said, I have a lot of stuff to tell you about Jews, but I won't. Because I saw that there are guys here, they are taking pictures of the Jewish homes, and that means that if we talk more about it, some Jews will come, take the homes, and will leave it here, and we don't want this to happen. Nathan worries that he has created problems for his young friend Zbyszek, who has changed Nathan's perspective on Polish anti-Semitism.
It took me a year of correspondence to wonder where he's coming from. There's a certain tension as to what is the meaning of this man's thinking. Now, how often we come a person who says he's a friend of the Jew, but dormant, he has the negative images. He will say the Jews are okay. He says, but he won't say but. He says they really know how to make money. Or else they'll say he's the Jew in my family, meaning that they have an image that he is an aggressive hustler, money ambitious person.
When I was baptized during the war with my mother, this older woman that was really taking care of us came to my mother and said, "Congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Finally, you do not smell Jew." So I'm saying that even the heroes were not free from anti-Semitism. That's a big contradiction. And he is free of anti-Semitism.
He's outside of our experience.
From my conversations with Zbyszek, I begin to imagine what has happened here 50 years ago. During the liquidation of the Bransk ghetto, 300 Jews escaped to the surrounding forest. Their chance of meeting a German soldier was slim. For a population of some 6,000, the entire occupation force consisted of 5 Germans. The survival of Jews depended on getting food and shelter from Polish farmers, like the family of Bolesław Zapisek. I wanted to know if the farmers were getting anything in return for their help.
Byście to im za darmo dawali wszystko?
No co mieli brać i z czego, no? I za co?
The Jews had nothing to pay us with, says Zapisek. Did they have a good appetite, I ask. Not bad, he answers. But we had 20 pigs and 5 cows, and for bread mother bought grain and baked it in the oven.
I 5 krów.
Zapisek's story seems too good to be true. So I decide to provoke him and ask him if he recognizes a Jew in me.
Ale niech pan powie, czy pan poznaje Żydów.
Może pan być nawet, wie pan?
You know what? You could be one, he says.
Po czym pan poznaje?
Nie no, w ogóle taki pan...
Because of my nose, I ask?
Jezu, no ponosie.
And him, I point to Nathan? He looks like one. I can tell by his nose.
Nawet po nosie, no poznaję, że może być.
You look like a Jew. His says, oh, your nose.
And how about me? Asks Zbyszek.
A jego nos? Nie podoba się.
No.
Tu pokaż profil.
Nie, ale nie.
Profil.
Ale powiedz mi pan.
A ten?
Ten nie, też nie.
But really, insists Zapisek, tell me the truth, are you?
W końcu, no bo tak, no. No.
Tak.
When I confirm, he assures me that he doesn't have any problem with it.
Co myśli pan, że ja mam to za jakiś ten...
Mnie uratowali życie Polacy.
I tell Zapisek that I was saved by Christians, but that most of the people in hiding were given over to the Germans.
Ale gdyby pan... Panie, ja tu znam ludzi, cholera, ja... No ależ oni co tam, już to...
It's true, he says. I know of a case where a beautiful Jewess, along with a whole bunch of Jews, hid in the forest nearby and were betrayed by the farmers.
Tak?
Okup? No, dół.
Dół, tak.
I ludzie ich wydali.
Who are the farmers, I ask. The people over there, he says.
Zna pan nazwisko?
No, czy ja wiem, czy...
I ask for names, but Zapisek is elusive.
Co?
Dowody?
I have to think about it, he says.
He doesn't know who exactly was, but it was a group of 7 Jews, that were living in the forest when you took this, and they were coming to this little area of the houses, and they were asking for food. And he said that they were probably annoying them by asking them too often, or maybe they didn't want to pay them or whatever. At one point, they came from over there to this road, to the place when they were hidden, and they take them physically and drove them to Germany. Betrayal. Much deeper, where they had Myśli pan, że to naprawdę mogło być to?
Muszę to dokładnie tu upewnić.
Bo kto by inny mógł coś takiego robić? Zdecydowanie wykopany.
Zdecydowanie wykopany i ziemia widać odwalana. Ale to po 40 latach ja uważam, że to to.
You think that's it? What would you call it? A dig out?
Dug out.
What?
Dug out.
The next day, we get a phone call from Zapisek. Come over to the wedding of my niece, he says. I have some news for you. I know the names of the 2 people who betrayed the Jews in the dugout.
Wiem, jak się nazywają.
I know the names of the 2 people, he tells me.
I te, co tutaj, co ja w drugim miejscu pokazywałem, te 2, co te pan...
One is dead, one is alive.
Antoszczuk z Kurkiem.
Z Kurkiem.
Zapisek tells me where to find him.
Możemy do mieszkania? Dzień dobry panu. Pan dobrze słyszy?
At the first glance, I realize that the man is senile. It crosses my mind that I should back off and not bother him. But then I realize that when he closes his eyes, the last traces of memory will disappear, and we will never know. His daughter insists that he was too young to remember, and that I should go to their neighbor who is older.
Pomagaliście im?
Dworowski, Aleksander.
Dali chleb.
He says he knew Jews were hiding in the forest and farmers were giving them food.
To dawali chleb.
They had to give them food, he adds. They were afraid of them. I tell Kurek that I have seen the places in the forest where the Jews were hiding, and I ask him if he ever came across them. I didn't, he answers, unless by accident, when I was herding the cows. I could have stumbled on them, he says. Whenever Germans found them, they would bash their heads in and throw them into the pit. And that was the end of it. Did Germans ever come to your house asking about the Jews? They didn't need to ask. They knew how to handle them, he answers, and unleashes his fantasy. Sometimes they would send planes after them and bombard them from the air. Zapisek's lead has reached a dead end, but the investigation has hooked me. One thing I know, the atrocities happened here, in the remote farm areas, where there were no witnesses. From the pages of survivors' testimonies, certain names stand out, like the brothers Hrich, who would receive Jews, grab their belongings, bludgeon them to death, and throw their bodies in the river. I learned from Zbyszek that one of the brothers Hrich is still alive.
Witam pana, słyszałem o panu dużo. Pan jest jeden z najstarszych ludzi tutaj, co?
Tak.
Pamięta pan wojnę?
Pamiętam.
Ciężkie były czasy, co?
Niech Bóg broni. A już dziś śmierć nosi, panie kochani. 80 z górą lat. A to pan fotografuje, nie?
Tak.
Mnie?
Tak. Niech pan mi powie, co to było z Żydami tutaj? Ciężko było.
No, zabrali do getta. I wymordowali. Gdzieś wywieźli. Tak.
Pan miał coś do czynienia z Żydami?
Nie.
Nic.
Nic. Stary. Nie interesował się.
U pana się nie chowali?
Nie, Boże broni. Nie. A jak by się, to był przykaz, jak jeżeli znajdzie u mnie w mieszkaniu, czy w stodole, czy gdzie, to śmierć tobie i spali. Tam w pasach kilometr drogi od nas. To naleźli, to spalili, on uciekł, a kobiety zabili. O, ja nie dam rady stoić, muszę usiąść.
Dobra. Ale niech pan mi powie, ale wyście mieszkali w Chojewie.
Tak.
Pan z bratem.
Z bratem.
Brat nie żyje.
Nie. Józef nazywał się.
Ale oni wam coś po wojnie zarzucali, że wyście coś Żydom złego robili.
Nie, to oni zarzucali, to co z tego, co? A wszystko się jeszcze mnie zabrali i puścili, a Kamiński duży siedział za ich.
To Kamiński to robił?
A to?
Kamiński tych Żydów zabijał?
A no i Kamiński łapał i odstarcał nim.
Do Niemców?
Tak, Kamiński.
Ja słyszałem, sołtys.
A on sołtysem był, ogromonem buraki kontaktował.
I co się z nim stało po wojnie?
A co po wojnie? On wysiedział, no nie wiem, ile lat wysiedział, dość długo, a później przyszedł. I umarł już. Co nie, to nie.
Nie przyszedł nigdy żaden Żyd do was? Nigdy nie chował się, nie zapukał, nie poprosił o kawałek chleba? Nic? Nie było tego?
Nie.
W ogóle przez całą wojnę nie widział pan ani jednego Żyda?
Widział jak do getta.
Do Bielska?
Do Bielska jeździ.
Tak, to pan widział?
To widział.
Ale tak, żeby się ktoś chował potem i do was przychodził i prosił o coś?
Nic, to nie. To nie.
W Chojewie byście byli?
W Chojewie.
Jeden Hrycz i drugi, dwóch braci?
Dwóch.
Tak.
Obydwa siedzieli na kolonii.
Tak. I koło lasku takiego byliście gdzieś tam,
tak?
Tak?
Taki karty, jako ten kłonica wysokie, niziutkie. Takie.
I Kamiński, mówi pan, łapał Żydów?
A Kamiński tak, ja nie widzę, tyle odstarcali i mówili, że Kamiński, on wysiedział długo. No. W więzieniu wysiedział.
Wrócił i umarł.
Wrócił i umarł po wszystkim. O, jakie ręce. Już teraz śmierć na nosie.
Co?
Już teraz śmierć na nosie.
Na nosie. Tak się mówi?
Tak, już teraz oj, za dużo.
None of the people who serve jail sentences for betraying the Jews is alive. But the daughter of a man who was convicted of killing Jews is willing to talk. I really don't remember this well. I don't know where those Jews were. Did they round them up to our house or someplace else? I couldn't tell. My father was told that if he doesn't report them, he will pay the price. He had family, that's why. I really don't remember this well. My father had some good Jews with whom he was friendly. They left some belongings with us for safekeeping and went to hiding. After the war, they returned and picked those things up. But the others were desperate, with no place to go. How did it happen? Why did it happen? I don't know. Was it in the hands of people, or was it God's will? I don't understand. People told me that it happened, but I didn't see it, so I cannot testify. They said they shot them in an open field.
Maybe he did something wrong. He spent 15 years in prison. He was a good man. He didn't drink. He would go to the church. But there were the times.
I'm sure it all happened under great tension, I say. We were only human, you know, and those were the times. Everybody was a victim. That's right. I wonder if people would act the same way if it happened today, I ask her. I never get an answer.
And you try to make sense of this, and I cannot make sense of this. My mind cannot support decency and inhumanity in the same people. I don't know what it means. How can a decent man be inhuman at times? What component of a man, of a just man, of a decent man, of a caring person, have evil lurking in their hearts, and that evil will assert itself and rule that person? I don't know this. I don't understand it. It doesn't, I can't take anything else in life and use that as a yardstick, as a comparison, as a explanation. I don't know what this is. I can't, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I have to figure this out. I don't know.
At the home of Zbyszek's friend, with whom he restored the Jewish cemetery, Nathan and I receive farewell wishes. Trains bring back memories. After my mother left me in the courtyard, a Catholic priest took care of me. Later, he brought me here, to the orphanage of the brothers Orione, 15 miles from Warsaw. I was a 5.5-year-old boy who knew his story well. My mother was a maid. I never knew my father. Here, at the age of 6, I had my first communion and became the most dedicated altar boy. From here, we saw the heavy smoke over Warsaw. The ghetto was burning, and I knew my father was there. Only the principal knew who I was. When the Germans visited the orphanage, he brought me to the chapel, and I would work around the altar or hide behind it. Since I had lost my mother, memories of my father were coming back. The touch of his unshaved cheek when he invited me to his bed Sunday morning in our ghetto room. Then the war was over. I was sitting in the dining room at a table. A woman came from the entrance. An old woman with sunken cheeks was looking at me. Maryś, she said. We can't speak, I told her. We have meditations now. I'm your mother, she said. I don't know you, ma'am. I'm your mother. Don't you remember your aunts and uncles? No, I don't remember you. I would like to take you to Warsaw. Do you have enough money to take care of me? I'm okay here, I said. She cried. I later found out that my father cut a hole in the train's floor on the way to the concentration camp and jumped off. He joined the partisans and was killed in a battle. Nathan could be my father, but I see him as a schoolboy eager to learn. I am grateful to him for bringing me to Bransk. I couldn't face the memories of my own family's Shtetl. I have adopted Nathan's Bransk as my own. But my journey in search of a Shtetl has only begun. A year later, Zbyszek Romaniuk comes to Chicago, where Nathan and I live. Zbyszek wants to gather more material for his research about Jewish life in Bransk. They haven't seen each other since we left Poland.
Conversations and dialogue with him all the time. I look after him all the time. I'm worried about him all the time.
Nie wierzyłem, że kiedykolwiek będę mógł się zobaczyć z Nathanem w Chicago. Dla mnie to jest wielkie przeżycie.
He never believed that he will be in Chicago one day, and it's the big emotion for him.
I want to know what was the atmosphere that you grew up in Bransk, that the information that you got about Jews.
Bardzo dużo dowcipów.
A lot of jokes.
Które praktycznie wyśmiewały troszeczkę.
Which would make fun of Jews.
Dużo różnego rodzaju, nie tylko dowcipów, ale i przysłów, powiedzeń.
A lot of sayings that were derogative about Jews. or Jewish sayings. Na przykład?
Jest takie powiedzenie w Brańsku używane. Dotychczas słyszałem od małego dziecka takie powiedzenie: jak ktoś się niegustownie ubiera, wówczas się mówi wystroił się jak na żydowskie wesele.
Oh, for example, since he was very little, whenever someone is dressed in a bad taste, the comment is, you are dressed as if you were going for a Jewish wedding.
Okay. Can you give me another example?
Inne przykłady.
Inne przykłady
takich powiedzeń właśnie.
Powiedzeń. Słowo harmider, że tak jak jest kilka osób razem rozmawia ze sobą, jak w żydowskiej szkole.
When people talk at the same time and there is a noise in the room, that the person says it's noisy like in a cheder or in a Jewish school.
Okay. You know, I was so touched and so overwhelmed by the hospitality and the congeniality after that first day. I was just really touched. I couldn't see through it.
Oczywiście. Ja wrażenie. Cieszę się, że Nathan odniósł takie wrażenie.
Ale jaka jest prawda?
Ale prawda jest taka, że mam sąsiadki, które po każdej wizycie, a szczególnie po filmowaniu, komentują to tak, że sprowadzam Żydów, aby odzyskiwali swoje majątki.
It is very nice that you got this impression, and he's very glad.
I was overwhelmed.
However, the day after you left and the day after other Jews leave, what he hears from his neighbors often is that he again brought the Jews so they can reclaim their properties.
Jedna z kobiet mi powiedziała, abym lepiej byłoby dla mnie, gdybym zostawił ten temat, bo może mi się coś stać złego.
A woman told him after he started to do work on the cemetery, you better stop doing this because something bad can happen to you. I worry about you.
How did he react to these things then? How did he react to these type of things?
Co ty odpowiedziałeś na to?
Powiedziałem, że ja nie należę do ludzi, którzy boją się jakichś tam pogróżek czy czegokolwiek. Ja nigdy w życiu się niczego nie bałem.
I was never afraid of anything. I'm not concerned about threats.
That's why I worry about him.
Dlatego on się boi o ciebie.
It's from these towns that we mark over here that I can humanize the experience of the Jews and to steer away from cold history. The ghetto wire was over here, and the ghetto fence, the ghetto wooden fence was here, and when the people went to the church, they had to see this ghetto fence, and I always wondered what type of impression it made on the people who were going to that church. This is the market, and this is where my grandmother sold soap in the market. This is the market where my grandmother sold soap.
This is the last time Zbyszek will see Nathan Kaplan. Within a year, Nathan will die, leaving behind him hundreds of pages of notes from a 4-year-long search for his shtetl.
This is the street where the synagogue, where three of the 5 synagogues were on this street, a little cluster, a religious, a spiritual cluster. And I can imagine that all the time the sound of prayer and chants were filling the streets.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget, I want the picture of you and your wife.
Okay.
It was Nathan who set up appointments for Zbyszek across America. I will be Zbyszek's guide. My assignment is a difficult one. I will be opening the door for him to the Jews from Bransk who live in America. I know they never met a Gentile who studies the Jewish life. I also know that American Jews have different feelings toward the shtetl. For some, it is an inspiration. For others, a nightmare. In this New Jersey condominium complex, most of the residents are Jewish. It occurs to me that I am taking Zbyszek to a vertical shtetl in modern America. We are visiting an Israeli woman whose mother was born in Bransk.
Hello, Marian.
Her name is Rivka Kornreich.
Hello, nice to meet you, Rivka. My mother came from Bransk, which I can understand it, the most elegant woman that you can imagine. So ask him if he heard about that people in Bransk in those times were so elegant. Everything, when my mother passed away, my cousin told me that she remembered her, the way she came to Israel, everybody looked at her, not only because she was beautiful, she had the most gorgeous clothes, the very high heel shoes. In fact, she could not even use them in Israel, and we had them for years and years in the closet.
This is the first time that Zbyszek is in a Jewish home, and right away he is under scrutiny. How come your parents didn't object to you delving into the life of the Jews? I translate Rivka's question.
Odnoszą się do tego, co ty robisz, szczerze.
Moi rodzice nigdy nie wtrącały się do tego, co robiłem. Nigdy nie mieszali się w moje sprawy.
Her parents always stayed away from his life.
I absolutnie nie mają nic przeciwko temu, co robię.
They have nothing against what he's doing.
Z kolei czasami przychodzili trochę podenerwowani.
Sometimes they would come home a little nervous.
Gdy słyszeli właśnie złośliwe plotki.
When they heard in town a bad gossips about him.
Chociaż no to, że nazywają mnie Judę na przykład.
He has a nickname Judah. Call him in town, some people.
Because of it,
because of this, right? Co jeszcze?
My most important question of today. Do you think that he can be objective in searching the Jews because he's not Jewish? And this is really, I want an answer. I have a little bit doubt. Don't
I'll tell him.
No,
I'll tell
not
him.
tell him.
Czy ty możesz być obiektywny, nie będąc Żydem?
Oczywiście.
Absolutely yes.
To czy obiektywizm coś się kojarzy tylko z Żydami? Ja zupełnie tego...
Why you connect objectivity with being a Jew?
No, because this is a subject. Fine. No, it has a lot to do.
But who is most qualified, you think, to really write the history of a little Polish town, if not a historian that lives there, that has access to archives? Isn't it a Polish interest to know the history of the land?
Absolutely, I agree.
He could be more objective than if you were writing it, because you would make it you would like beautify it or whatever, and you would put in all your subjective opinions, which you have plenty of, and he doesn't have any. Well, maybe he has some, but he could be a lot more objective than anyone else. And as a historian, I mean, he's looking up history. Why would it be suspicious? It's a
no.
He's not writing a novel. I mean, he's writing a history book.
Right. אני רוצה לראות עוד, מה יש שם עוד?
In road. בדרך.
בדרך.
על הכביש.
כביש.
וזה אותיות עבריות.
השתמשו באבנים האלה.
כן, אני רואה, הנה, זה אותיות עבריות. אישה חשובה וצנועה במעשיה, דבורה שמחה, look at this. How do you know?
He speaks some Hebrew, he learns.
Really? You learn Hebrew?
קצת.
Enya, it's Rivka.
Oh, Rivka.
How are you?
Oh, not so good.
What's happened?
My eyes bothers me.
Oh.
The arthritis, my legs, I cannot walk.
The last time I saw you, you were in A shape.
Yes?
Yes, I just spoke with somebody and I told them how nice you look. How is Esther doing?
Still, Esther's not so good.
Okay, I'll make you now feeling very good because I have a surprise for you.
Yeah.
You know, I have in my house 3 people that are doing a project about Bransk, about your Shtetl.
Wherever the Poles was there was no good. When the people used to go Saturday morning from shul, from synagogue, they used to beat them in some they used to tie them to the tails of the horse, and then they used to drag them in the street.
What do you remember else? What else you remember? You remember
Jak dorosły człowiek się może bać dzieci?
It was the children that were doing this or the older Poles? People. Older people. Starsi, nie tylko dzieci.
Nikt inny nigdzie to nie potwierdza takich faktów.
One more question. Enya, listen to this. My mother came to Israel. She brought beautiful clothes and beautiful shoes, and we have pictures. She was so elegant. And she used to tell me that when they come to Israel, she had such a hard life. You know, they had to establish Kfar Hasidim and Kfar Uriah. They had to work in the day, and they have to watch at night. They have so many problems in Israel. So I always were under the impression that in Bransk she had good life.
No. I can't say that they had such a good life.
So how come she came with this beautiful clothes and with the high-heeled shoes and...
Well, listen, this is your life. Whatever you needed, you spent on yourself. Whatever you had.
But she used it in Bransk?
No, she probably took all the savings and bought one pair of everything and came to Israel. That's what immigrants like to do.
That's what she did?
After our first experience, I feel like a voyeur. I am watching Zbyszek as he trespasses into a foreign territory, just as I did during the war when I lived among Christians in Poland. I watch him entering a world he could only imagine until now. In a suburb of Atlanta lives a woman who left Bransk as a 14-year-old girl.
Bransk.
Oh.
Her name is Evelyn Silverboard. Her family fled Bransk in 1938, just before the war.
No. That's to moja chata.
Ojej. Takie zdjęcia nie widziałem naocznie w życiu.
That's incredible.
Warto było przyjechać do Ameryki, żeby te zdjęcia zobaczyć w ogóle. Kościół.
Edelman.
Edelman browar.
Right here is the
Zarząd miejski.
Yeah, and the turm.
Przyjaciółka Stella Lewin.
Lerman.
Brańsk. Jedno. To jest Żydówka, tak?
Ale Żydówki.
Would you go to Bransk?
No.
Why?
I want to remember the way I am. That's my home. Home. Bransk is home. That's the way it's home, and that's the reason I don't want to go back, because I want to remember my home the way it was. I don't want to remember it the way it is now. I don't know anybody now. There was all the familiar faces, every nook and cranny. I mean, I drew him a map of where people lived and names, and I can still see in my mind's eye, I can see everything. I can see the way it looked, and I remember going on the river with Lizhvis, on the river when it was frozen. And I remember going in the summertime, swimming in the river. I remember that, all of that. This is from Rachela Finkelstein, na pamiątki. This is from Shane Golduvna, her mother. They had a galanterie store. This is Yosef Betzal Kerstin in Jewish. And this is from Motel Shpetalne. And this is from Chayfetzuvna. And this is from my aunt Choma, Nechama. And this is Stella Lerman. We were a close-knit group of girlfriends. The last night I went, we said goodbye. The lights were out in town. The elektrovnia was being cleaned. So we had lamps, and everybody came to say goodbye. And in the morning, I remember Chomsky. Do you know the name Chomsky? Sarah Chomsky, they were very good friends of our family. She was knocking on to wake up. It was time to wake up. Then the bus stopped in front of our house. All the good friends, they went on the bus with us to the outskirts of town when the bus was near Benduga. And that's where they got off and walked back in, and we went on. And I remember my aunt saying, "They'll never see us again." And that was it. Then we went to Warsaw, and we stayed in Warsaw 3-4 days. Papa went to Lodz to say goodbye to his brothers and sisters, and 2 brothers came, and a nephew came back to Warsaw to say goodbye to us. And I remember going on the bus to the train station to go to Gdynia, and there were riots in the street. And the last thing that I remember about Poland, and I don't know whether I should say it or not, was we were on the bus, and the students, college students, university students, yelling and carrying signs, "Prejdami." And that I'll never forget. That was in my brain. It still is, and that's another reason I won't go back to Poland. Because that's my last memory of Poland, was Prejdami. We were on the bus. We were all scared. And that was it. So,
what do you say Prejdami in English?
Down with the Jews.
Evelyn shows us a collection of letters from Bransk, written to her in 1939, before the war put an end to all correspondence. "I can't believe that you are seas and continents away from us," reads one of the letters. "Your golden America is a dream for everyone. You read newspapers and must know what is happening in Germany. Therefore, you should not miss Bransk, even though you had your sweet childhood here. I hope you will forget Bransk soon and adapt to the American life."
Jestem w tym samym miasteczku.
Life in our Shtetl has become unbearable. I am sick of this hideous word Jew I hear all around me. It seems that we are born to suffer. The only hope is that one day we'll all be in our sunny Palestine.
Jak niedawno marzyłaś być w tej złotej Ameryce,
And you are so far from me in your golden America. I can't believe I won't be able to see your beautiful little face and kiss your rosy lips.
Twoje purpurowe usteczka.
Look, to jest on Friday night. We used to put this on our table.
Shabbos.
For Shabbos.
Na Shabbos, obrót na Shabbos.
That was called this, and my mama's silver candlestick. This is the way it looked, Lord.
Niesamowite.
It's pretty, it's still pretty. And we've been here since 1938, and And I don't think it's been used since. We have some beautiful candlesticks. See, Mama used to put it like right here. At the end of the table. And she used to bench licht. There was a, what was, and it'll never, never, never be again. It's a civilization, a way of life that's gone forever, and it'll never be duplicated. It can't. It was a very rich civilization. How can you transfer the flavor that was? Sure, the American Jews, they're making Shabbos, but have they got them Plushen and Tishtach? I mean, that doesn't make the Shabbos, but it's the little things. It's the way of life. It's in Shulain. Are you going to hear it here? Mesha, you, they're calling. You can't. It's just a way of life that I was really blessed to know. I really was. And that is, you asked me about going back to Bransk. I want to remember, I want to have my memories that I remember, my good memories.
A Holocaust survivor from Bransk lives in Baltimore. After the war, he came to America. Now, Jack Rubin owns a clothing store.
This is the entrance from the back. In 1947, we came to this country. Now I'm in the United States. I'm in America. What will I do here? You don't have money, you don't have a trade, and you can't talk. Everybody looks at you like an dummy. What will I do here? So my uncle saw the way I was walking around. He said, what do you worry about? You don't have what to eat? I'll take you, I had a country out of town, I'll take you over there, you're going to be a whole summer. You're not going to do nothing, you're going to drink and eat, you're going to rest up for all your chores. Said, Uncle, I'm going to get crazy over there, I want to do something. I want to do something. So what can you do? So I told him, I got a landsman in Baltimore, Tucker, Tikotsky. So he told me if I'm not going to be able to do nothing in Philadelphia, I should come to Baltimore. I know him, he knows me, in both together, we'll do something. We used to sell suits. If I'll tell you, we used to buy suits, let's say $5, $6, $2, $3. I even once, to one man, we bought 1,200 suits. Maybe 20% of them we had to throw out. In the rest of them, we paid maybe 50 cents a piece. In the rest of them, we worked it out, you sent to the cleaner. And we had also a seamstress to fix it up and to sell it. And the same thing, shorts. I can only tell you, when I had pants, here you see the pants they lay in. I didn't like the way they lay like this. They don't lay straight. I sold pants for $1. From far away, they looked better than this, the new ones. I sold also pants, $3 a dozen. $3 a dozen. Shorts, $2 a dozen. $1, we used to buy for $1 a dozen. But you have to work it out and grade it out.
With Jack Rubin, I feel we are back in the Shtetl. I can hear him speaking Polish with the same Yiddish accent. I can see his store on the market square in Bransk. Jack Rubin presides over a small community of people in Baltimore who call themselves Branskers. Some of them left Bransk before the war. A few, like Rubin, survived the Holocaust in Poland. This evening, everyone was asked to bring family photos from Bransk.
Okay, how you doing? Good. I haven't seen you in a long time, since my mother's birthday party.
Niech pan sobie usiądzie i on panu pokaże, co to jest. They are joined by their children. Zbyszek Romaniuk is the guest of honor. His computer, the main attraction. In it, he has entered 2,000 names of Jewish families from Bransk.
Brick home, which was a rare home.
Rubin Dawid.
Rubin Dawid jest mój ojciec.
Żona Perla. Tak, żona Perla. Jankiel. Szymon. Szpryńca. Tak, to mam wszystko. Miał duży wkład w budowę synagogi krawców. Pański ojciec. Tak. I znalazłem w dokumencie pana ojca z 1904 roku.
When Zbyszek grew up in Bransk, the word Jew was always whispered. But here he says the word aloud, sits among Jews and feels trusted. I'm glad for him. I always wanted the same from the Poles.
Ja mieszkam w rynku. Tak. Przy ulicy Rynek. Tak, w rynku mieszkam, rynek. W centrum. Pan mieszka po jednej stronie rynku, a ja mieszkam po drugiej stronie rynku. Teraz nie ma nikogo. Nie ma nikogo. Ja jestem Polakiem. Ale nie, ja nie jestem Żydem. Nie. Nie. Nie.
I am eager for Zbyszek to make more connections. A friend of mine teaches a course called Shtetl at Graz College in Philadelphia. He is excited to have Zbyszek in his classroom.
Here is a Pole, right, who has a certain need, a very profound need for this same memory, right? Now his needs may be very different, and in fact he represents a whole young generation in Poland. And
Michael Steinlauf, the instructor, is a son of Holocaust survivors.
No doubt, you know, the focus and the core of this new interest.
Narysowałem tutaj rynek.
He drew the marketplace,
na którym się odbywały główne transakcje handlowe w poniedziałki zawsze, każdego poniedziałku.
Monday was the market day.
Tradycja ta była bardzo stara, od 500 lat.
500-year-old tradition of Monday being the market day.
Był też mniejszy rynek, nazywany koński, gdzie handlowano zwierzętami.
And here was a smaller marketplace called the horse marketplace, where animals were traded.
This is a history class, and Zbyszek is in his element. He tells them that in the 19th century, the Jews of Bransk occupied 400 houses in the town center. Only 10 houses belonged to the Catholics. If a Pole wanted to live there, he had to be interviewed by the Jewish Communities Board. The Jews controlled the town's economy. The Poles ran the local government. A vice mayor position was reserved for a Jew.
Było tutaj jakieś...
During the break, Michael invites Zbyszek to his office. The two historians have different views about 1918, when Poland regained independence after centuries of foreign occupation.
Jakie fakty? Wiele czytałem wspomnień Żydów z małych miasteczek.
Jews did not support Polish independence, says Zbyszek, and therefore they became a focus of animosity and were called unpatriotic. Why should they be patriotic? Asked Michael. Under Russia, they were one of many minorities, but they didn't know what kind of destiny an independent Poland will bestow upon them. As a matter of fact, they saw nationalism on the rise, and 10 years later, they saw its results, an openly anti-Semitic society. One of the students has prepared a recital of Shtetl songs in Yiddish. This is a song about a house left behind in a Shtetl somewhere in Poland. At a Polish-speaking radio station in Chicago, Zbyszek and I are invited to tell the story of Bransk and to answer callers' questions.
Ja chciałem przedstawić Państwu Zbigniewa Romaniuka z miasta, czy miasteczka Brańsk, 160 km od Warszawy, 40 km od Bielska Podlaskiego, 40 parę kilometrów od Białegostoku, tak Zbyszek. Kiedy się pojawił na rynku w Brańsku pierwszy żywy Żyd od czasu, kiedy 2,5 tysiąca Żydów zniknęło z powierzchni ziemi?
Pojawiali się po wojnie, ale bardzo rzadko. Niestety to było owiane pewną tajemnicą. Ci ludzie nie ujawniali się, przyjeżdżali i wyjeżdżali tak jakby w tajemnicy. Gdy ci ludzie zaczęli mnie odwiedzać, pojawił się pewien element jakiejś pewnie zazdrości, nie wiem, ale zaczęto mnie różnie nazywać, od Judę przez Żyda, przeróżnie.
Od czasu do czasu ktoś wyrył na Twoich drzwiach gwiazdę Dawida i od czasu do czasu słyszałeś takie słowa jak pachołek żydowski, tak?
Z tą gwiazdą Dawida to się raz zdarzyło, to nie było wiele razy, a oczywiście niestety w naszym narodzie dzieje coś takiego jak jakaś dziwna zazdrość.
Ja uważam, że to bardzo dobrze, że w ogóle taki temat jest podejmowany i to jak zauważyłem, bo dosyć często słucham Waszego radia, dosyć często ostatnio. Wiele ludzi kojarzy słowo Żyd z określeniem jako chciwiec, skąpiec, zły człowiek. To tak naprawdę nie jest. Miałem to szczęście i możliwość spotkania wielu osób pochodzenia żydowskiego, szczególnie tutaj i naprawdę byłem zaszokowany, jak ci ludzie mają pozytywne podejście do życia i do innych osób, jak bardzo troszczą się o swoje rodziny, jak troszczą się o swoich przyjaciół, swoich znajomych i nie tylko osoby pochodzenia żydowskiego, po prostu są to ludzie przez duże L, tak bym to powiedział.
W pewnym sensie uważam, że Żydzi sobie sami zawinili też, dlatego że trzymali się strasznie tacy zamknięci. Nie tłumaczyli nam, nigdy nie mówili, na czym polega ich religia, ich obrzędy.
Mniejszość jest zawsze zastraszona i zahukana. Nie można obciążać mniejszości tym, że mniejszość nie dzieli się z większością prawdą o sobie. To jest obowiązkiem większości, która kieruje państwem, żeby do tej mniejszości dotrzeć.
Mamy kolejnego słuchacza na linii pierwszej. Słuchamy. Halo?
I ja nie mam żadnych ciepłych słów do tych dwóch panów, ani do całego tego klimatu tej audycji. Ja jestem zburzona i krew się we mnie burzy. Ja nigdy w Polsce nie byłam antysemitą, tutaj jestem od 3 lat i na podstawie tego, co ja słyszałam, ja dopiero teraz stałam się antysemitą. I aż mi się niedobrze robi. A pan Marzynski, który robi takie filmy o Polsce, niech on zacznie robić je o Izraelu i o Żydach.
Jeżeli było 2,5 tysiąca Żydów w Brańsku i 2,5 tysiąca Polaków w Brańsku, to 2,5 tysiąca Żydów miało własne budynki, a Polacy mieszkali w suterynach.
Ale ja dziwię się bardzo, bo to niestety Niemiec wszystko zrobił, ale składa się na Polaków. I jednak dochodzę do wniosku, że najlepiej tworzyć historię 50 parę lat później, się wyszukuje kogoś, no smarkaczy, 29 lat, który nie ma pojęcia o historii, która była 50 lat temu. I właśnie tacy tworzą historię i dojdą do wniosku, że właśnie nie Niemcy męczyli Żydów, tylko Polacy. Dziękuję.
When I bring Zbyszek to the Holocaust Museum under construction in Washington, D.C., the words from the Polish radio still ring in our ears. His attempt to maintain a cool command of his Jewish studies keeps colliding with living memories tinted by moral judgments. This museum will again confront him with the question of his people's responsibility for the fate of the Jews. One of the exhibitions in the museum will be dedicated to life in the Shtetl. The exhibit is the result of 20 years of photographic research by a Brooklyn College scholar, Yafa Eliach. She collected some 2,000 photographs taken in a shtetl called a Shishki, not far from Bransk. 1,500 Jews lived in this shtetl. Only 29 survived the war. We are at the home of Yafa Elayach in Brooklyn.
I have to find the Shkop pictures in a minute. Let me see if the synagogue is here or it's not here. Just have to. Not sure in which one is the synagogue. This is Binyamin
Polish
Kabachnik. Now he was killed. He was the father of that little boy that he was killed in the house of Bikivichova. That's the father of the little boy. He, Liba, his little boy, and him. Each of us that survived is alive because of the Poles.
Każdy, kto uratował się, jest żywy dzięki Polakom.
And those that escaped or are not alive, most of them are dead also because of the Poles.
Ci, którzy zostali zabici, też zostali zabici dzięki Polakom.
Let's say a family, for instance, the family of Rogowski escaped. 5 sons
Rodzina
and a
5
sister.
synów Rogowskich.
And they came to a farmer
Przyszli do chłopa,
that was very friendly with
który
them.
był bardzo przyjazny.
And they asked him for honey, because honey you could keep for a long time.
Poprosili o miód.
He gave them.
Dał miód.
The minute they walked out from the
W
house,
momencie, kiedy opuścili
he
dom,
took a gun
wzięli
and shot
pistolet
and killed.
i strzelili.
He killed 4, 1 escaped.
4 zabili, 1 uciekł. To jest typowy
Benjamin
przykład.
Rogowski, for instance. So from the entire Rogowski family, 1 son survived. I interviewed him extensively. He could not understand. He died in Israel. He has 2 sons in Vancouver. He told me, I cannot understand why.
Dlaczego oni to
When
zrobili?
he used to come on market day, he used to park his horse in their backyard and used to come the night before
W dniu
and sleep
targowym on
over
trzymał konia u nich w
and
ogrodzie
slept in their
i
house.
spędzał noc u nich.
So in the morning he would be very early at the market.
To był, żeby był rano na targu wcześniej.
It didn't enter his mind.
Nie mógł zrozumieć, dlaczego oni to zrobili.
Why? I mean, he was a friend. I think there were a handful of wonderful people that were willing to give their lives. Everything was an issue of life and death. And unfortunately for others, it was a time to take Jewish property. They were paid for being nasty. They were paid salt. They got the Jewish homes. They got the Jewish clothing. They got the Jewish money. And there was anti-Semitism that was there for years. It was not something that happened when the German occupation. Because we were different. It is the dislike of the unlike. We were Jewish and they were Christians. And they hated us because we were different.
The name are in English.
Here, yes, here if my father gives who were the Poles who preached against Jews in church.
Before Yafa's father died, he gave her a list of Poles who were openly anti-Semitic in this shtetl, along with the list of Jews who were killed by the Poles.
That both were working, they were the assistants of priest Maczulski.
Ilu Polaków brało udział w zabijaniu?
70 Poles,
70 Jews.
They were killed.
No, because sometimes a family of 5 was killed by 1 person.
Okay.
Or 1 person
But-
killed 13 people.
All right, I see. But there, how many Polish names are there?
The Polish names I really didn't count. I counted the victims' names. I did not count the Polish names.
He counts the killers. He, as a Pole, is interested how many were Polish killers. For him, it makes a difference for some reason that someone says 100 and we're only 50.
I feel very sorry that our conversation focuses on those that killed rather than those that saved. I would rather have it focus on those that saved, because he would not be here to tell his story, to do all that, and I would not be here to do all that.
Ona mówi, że jest przykro, że my rozmawiamy w tej chwili o tych, co zabijali. Ona by 100 razy wolała mówić o tych, co ratowali, ponieważ bez tych, co ratowali, ani jej by nie było na świecie. Ani
Zgadza się, tak, tak. Tylko mnie przeraża powiedzmy około 100 osób. Dla mnie to jest rzecz, powiedzmy, coś nowego, bo ja się z takim zjawiskiem na taką skalę nie spotkałem. Owszem, było to kilkanaście osób w jakimś rejonie, ale nie aż 100. 100 to już jest bardzo duża liczba.
I understand, and it's very. I understand how painful it must be for you, and you must understand it was very painful for me getting all the names together, because by now I knew each victim. And I also knew many of the Poles as part of my chapter on Market Day. They used to come, they drank in this house, they took photographs in this place, and just a year later, and 2 years later, they killed the people with whom they drank, with whom they did business, whose photographs they took.
How your mother was finally killed? Show me just the scene. How was it?
It was October 20th, 1944. We came back on July 14th, 1944. We were liberated on the 13th, and we came out at night so nobody could see that we were on the farm of Mr. Korkuch, because there were rumors that he is hiding Jews, and if people would know, they would kill him. So he was not safe. So he wanted us to leave at night so nobody would know that he gave shelter to Jews. We slept in the field and came to the town, to Eshishki, in the morning. When we walked in, a group of us, the Kabachnik family, all hiding, 15 of us, hiding on Korkuch's farm. When we came in, people came out and said, "How come you are back? Hitler, after all, didn't do such a good job." This was the welcome. My mother was begging my father not to stay. She didn't want to, but the war was going on. And my father said, "We will just stay for a while and then we will move on." The meantime, we got back my brother, my baby brother, from a priest. And there were rumors that we have a lot more gold, not only the gold that we took out during the war, but we must have a lot of gold with us. And that my mother is going to open the drugstore that was owned by my grandmother, that we are going to open again the drugstore in town, the sklad apteczny, that my grandmother will open it.
I była plotka, że oni otworzą aptekę.
And the pharmacist was one of the people that was one of the town outspoken anti-Semites.
I aptekarz był jednym z najważniejszych antysemitów w mieście.
At night, on the 20th of October, there was a bang on the window where my brother and I slept, which was downstairs, and my brother grabbed me by the hand and we ran upstairs to my parents that were sleeping upstairs. A minute later, a grenade was thrown through the window, and all the blankets, the covers and the pillows, everything exploded, and all the feathers were all over. And we heard shooting downstairs. There were Russians also living in our house, 2 Russian officers that were sleeping downstairs, and other Jews that were in the house were jumping from the windows and running, but we couldn't because my mother was holding the baby. So upstairs was a little closet-like, because for the ceiling to be straight was a little closet. I have a picture of the house and a picture of the closet. And we went inside to hide, and my father took a piece of furniture to block the door so it would look like there is no little door there. And we heard them downstairs, and we could identify the voices. We knew who they were. One of them was the son of the pharmacist. And then one of them said, probably Mishinka, my father, they used to call Moshe, but locally everybody called him Mishinka, that he and the daughter of Katsova, meaning my mother, ran away with their children and took all the gold with them because they couldn't find any gold in the house. Then somebody said, "Let's go and look upstairs." And he said they probably ran away. They heard that we are coming. But then there was on the floor, when my father pulled the furniture, there was like a scratch on the floor. It was a wooden floor. And somebody said it's a fresh scratch.
Wrzucili granat
Zabili część ludzi, potem weszli, syn aptekarza, pytali się, gdzie jest złoto i nagle zobaczyli, że ktoś zauważył, że jest jakaś świeża ślad na podłodze jakiś. I pomyśleli sobie, że tam jest złoto.
Then they pulled the furniture and opened the door, and there was my mother sitting and the baby.
I wtedy odkryli tą meble, za którymi zabarykadowała była jej matka z dzieckiem i zobaczyli ich.
I was sitting behind my mother.
Ona była za matką.
And then my brother and my father, because it was on a slope, so there was almost no space, and my father was flat on the back, so I could sit up, and my mother and the baby could sit up.
I oni siedzieli na takich schodach, jedno za drugim, ojciec, matka, dziecko małe, ona i brat.
And my mother stood up with the baby, and she spoke, she called the man by his name. She knew who he was a neighbor. He was the son of the pharmacist. And she said to him, please, kill me first, so I will not see when you kill my baby.
I matka jej powiedziała, zabij mnie pierwszą, żebym ja nie musiała zobaczyć śmierci mojego dziecka.
So he shot my baby brother first.
On zabił najpierw dziecko.
And I counted the bullets, and I will never understand why, but I did. There were 9 bullets that killed my brother.
Ona liczyła wystrzały, było 9 wystrzałów.
And then he shot my mother with 15 bullets.
Matkę.
And she fell on the back on top of me.
Ona upadła na nią.
And I thought that I was dead. He didn't. Then they still did some shooting on the floor, but all the bullets went into my mother's body. And they left. They were very upset that they didn't find any gold. And that they thought that my father managed to run away. And they were very upset that they didn't get my father.
What did you do next?
They left. We heard, I thought that I was dead. I didn't move. Later, when the light started to come in and they left, my father crawled out. He was a little bit wounded in his neck. And we heard downstairs the other Jews that came out from hiding. And we took my mother's body down, and the police came, the KGB came, the NKVD came, and my father gave them all the names of the people that were there. They were closer to me than you are, and my father knew them all. And we buried my mother in the Jewish cemetery. She was the last Jew. My mother and my brother were buried in the cemetery. And people lined the streets, and some of them were very happy. They told us we should have never come back, that we should have not come back.
They were happy?
They were happy.
Zbyszek and I are in Israel. We've been invited for the commemoration marking the 50th anniversary of the liquidation of the Bransk ghetto. These are the Jews from Bransk. Most of them emigrated to Israel before the war. A few are Holocaust survivors. For Zbyszek, it is his Shtetl coming alive, his first witnessing of the Jewish religious life.
הנשמות הזכות והטהורות של הורינו, אחינו ואחיותינו, קרובינו וידידינו, קדושי קהילת בריינסק והסביבה שנשמור אחדות.
There is a famous rabbi who was born in Bransk and went to yeshiva there. Today, Rabbi Mann runs his own yeshiva here in Tel Aviv. After the prayer, Zbyszek will meet him. This will be Zbyszek's first meeting with a rabbi, a religious figure he knows intimately from his research and readings. Zbyszek knows that the Jews come to their rabbis with questions, so he too came with one. He looks for assurance that what he did with the gravestones is in accordance with Jewish religious laws. He has placed the stones in the old cemetery, but he has no way of matching them with the bodies lying beneath the ground. This is not a problem, the rabbi tells him. You did the most you could do under the circumstances, and we consider this a mitzvah, a good deed. When I learned that a group of Ramat Aviv High School seniors has just returned from a trip to Poland, I thought Zbyszek should meet them. Their trip was part of their studies of the Holocaust.
People here. Uważano w Izraelu, że Polak jest czymś złym tylko dlatego, że jest Polakiem, i odwrotnie.
He wants to break the barrier between Poles and the Jews, where a Pole, by definition, is no good, according to some people, and vice versa.
His people had a big part in what happened. He must accept it. I think that going to schools and trying to re-educate kids is no good. I mean, it won't change a thing, because this kind of education, an education of racism, is something you get at home.
But why are you so pessimistic? I cannot believe it. Why?
Why can't you believe it? I mean, you've been there as I am.
Yeah.
And you've seen the things that I have seen, I guess.
Yeah. And my father died in Warsaw ghetto. I understand everything. My family was completely killed by Germans. But I can still think that it's happened because of the ignorance.
Look, anticism is rooted. It's there to stay.
I to są właśnie zakorzenione poglądy, które ja chciałbym zmienić też w Izraelu.
He disagrees violently and he says that he cannot stand that you think like that.
W historia Żydów nie tylko Holokaust. I Polacy tutaj naprawdę niewiele zawinili w tym Holokauście.
In the Holocaust, he says Poles do not play an important role in killing Jews.
30 million Poles against I don't know how many regimes, German regimes could have done something. They didn't.
Mamy przykład też w Brańsku, że zamordowano parę osób, Polaków, którzy pomagali Żydom.
For helping Jews, Poles were killed by Germans.
I skoro Żydzi się sami nie ratowali, praktycznie były tylko dwa powstania, Białystok i Łódź, i Warszawa. Białystok i Warszawa.
He brings the point that how you can expect from Poles to defend the Jews if Jews didn't fight back themselves except for the Warsaw and Białystok ghetto.
There were Jews that escaped from the concentration camps, and they tried to run to the forests and to join the partisans, to the guerrilla forces, and the Polish guerrilla forces never accepted Jews. There was anti-Semitism in the guerrilla forces, like there was in the German leadership. It wasn't different. They just killed any Jew that came near them. It's like
even though they were in the same situation of surviving the German.
Jak sobie wyobrażacie, że nagle wszyscy wychodzą i pomagają Żydom,
How can you imagine? Everybody goes out of the public.
Jak to miałoby wyglądać?
Where every on the building is says that for helping a Jew there will be a death penalty. Kto mógł pomagać?
Mogli pomagać ci, którzy mieli warunki ku temu.
Zbyszek.
Tak mi się wydaje.
It has nothing to do with warunki. He says that only those who had conditions could help. What kind of conditions? Everybody has the same
ale w jakim znaczeniu
country. Każdy miał chałupę na wsi. Co znaczy każdy miał
każdy miał chałupę na wsi. Ale chwileczkę, w każdej wsi był jeden lub dwóch, którzy jednak współpracowali z Niemcami.
I said, listen, what are you talking about condition? Every peasant has one pig, one cow, one house. Everybody has the same condition. You took. Yes, you could bring a Jew and hide him in the cave or in the barn or whatever. But he says, but there was always one or two Poles that were collaborating with Germans in this village, and the other people were afraid of those other Poles.
A whole village afraid of two Poles.
Cała wieś bała się tego jednego albo drugiego, a nie mogli go zlikwidować.
I have the impression that what he's trying to do is clear his conscience more than he tries, to understand. He's coming here with all kinds of excuses, and I'm not sure that his goal is to change opinions more than to, relax a bit, feel that he's not as guilty as he really is.
Czuje się winny.
He never felt guilty, he says.
Moja rodzina nie jest obciążona żadnymi zbrodniami, dlatego ja w ogóle nie czuję się winny.
His family was very friendly with the Jews always and never had any problem.
He's talking about a very, very dangerous thing right now, because he's saying that if a crazy group like the Nazis takes over Europe again, the same thing could happen, because he says that it wasn't possible, but it was possible. You understand what I'm trying to say? He says that they couldn't have done anything. The situation hasn't changed since then. If the same thing happens again, we're not safe. I think that none of them are safe. Not the Poles, not the Jews, anybody.
Your English is great. You've been to the States, no? Just here? Very good. Good accent. Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.
Look, I never had a chance to talk to you about this, begins my heart-to-heart talk with Zbyszek. But there is something you don't understand. They know their facts, you must admit it. But which facts? Who provides them? Asks Zbyszek. All the tragic facts, I answer. Where there is even one person who killed a Jew, they want to know about it. They want to speak loudly about it, they want to condemn it, and that is their education. And you, while admitting certain facts, try to rationalize them by saying, oh yes, but the same things happen in France, or yes, but most Poles didn't do it. Why do you make these excuses, I ask? Because, says Zbyszek, all I hear about in Israel is how it all happened in Poland. But where else could it happen? Jews were living in Poland. What sense would it make for Germans to send the Jews to France and kill them there? Nobody says the Polish nation is no good. We are talking about Poles, about people. We are talking about Poles, Jews, Germans. Then let's mention their names, says Zbyszek. Fine, I agree, let's do it. Then I have no problem, says Zbyszek, as long as we mention the names. But your problem, I say, is that you don't like to mention the names. You prefer to use words like bandit, and then you suggest that bandits are everywhere. You suggest that people generally acted fine with just a few exceptions. I didn't say everyone act fine, argues Zbyszek, but by underlining the word bandit, I insist, you try to diminish the gravity of all of this. I still take the criticism of bad Poles to be the condemnation of Poland, says Zbyszek, and it hurts me because I know that there were those who helped. Where are they talked about? Not far from here, I say, in the Museum of Yad Vashem. How many of them are mentioned, asks Zbyszek. You know very well how many Jews are grateful to those who saved their lives, I say. But how many of the Poles who helped did not even admit it, he asks. I am sure there are many, I answer. But what does it say about the world they live in, if they are still afraid of admitting to their neighbors that they have helped Jews? Doesn't this condemn Polish society? Wait a moment, says Zbyszek. I'll ask them about it and I will tell you. But you yourself told me that people in the villages are afraid of being accused by the neighbors of getting rich on the Jews. That's right, says Zbyszek. That's exactly what they are afraid of, not of being accused that they helped. So what do you think, I ask, about the society with this type of mentality? I deplore this mentality, answers Zbyszek. To me, I add, it is tragic that a world in which you cannot admit altruism still exists. On that point you are right, says Zbyszek, and we both agree that this world needs improvement. "11,000 trees have been planted at Yad Vashem in memory of righteous Gentiles who helped Jews to survive the Holocaust. Half of the names, almost 5,000, are Polish. 7 belong to families from Bransk. I return to Bransk. One of those Jews saved by righteous Poles is with me. He is Jack Rubin, the clothing store owner from Baltimore. He survived the Holocaust against extraordinary odds.
Filip, on był naszym dobrym przyjacielem.
Jego córka mieszka niedaleko.
Jego córka pracowała w magistracie, a tutaj jedzie się do pasiarni.
Tak, prosto.
Before the war, his family owned a goose feeding yard in Bransk. This is the house the Rubin family lived in for many generations.
Tu było drzwi. I tu było drzwi. Takie malutkie się zrobił. Te schody nie było.
There were no stairs here.
Te schody nie było. I tutaj było ogrodzone.
That was a bedroom.
To było jego mieszkanie. A tu był z frontu.
On this wall was the telephone, and the telephone number was 11. That tells you how many phones there were in Bransk.
Pan się może wyobrazić, wiele telefonów było w Brańsku.
They were a prosperous Jewish family in Bransk. His parents and 3 children, Shimon, the oldest, sister Szprinca, and Jack. Jack in the uniform of the Polish army. Jack the bodybuilder. his mother, Jack at 14. He was known in this town as Jankele Gęsiarz, Jankele the Gooseman. At 16, he started to work for his father. At 20, he was in charge of 11,000 geese. The Rubin family's competitive edge was that they would walk the geese to the market rather than cram them into wagons, so that they would arrive unwrinkled and presentable. Jack reveals another business secret to the attendant of the now state-run goose yard. After we bought the geese, he tells him, we would plug the down from their bellies. And guess what? They would immediately start to eat like crazy. You can't imagine how many thousands of zlotys we made on this invention.
Tutaj pod skrzydlem. Tutaj, gdzie ja biorę.
Po ile są cielaki dzisiaj?
Cielaki, nie każdy cielak to samo. Dziecko odesiewo.
The Monday morning market was the only place where Jews mingled with Poles. When it came to geese, Jack was the king. He was setting the pace. Immediately, he runs into one of his old farmhands, whose name is Jan Dobrogocki. They recall the times when they served in the same military unit, number 79, 2nd Company. Jan remembers best the Pledge of Allegiance. The Catholic priest, the rabbi, and the Orthodox priest were all there. Everyone pledged to serve the fatherland in his own faith. Another former worker shows up. His name is Bronek Łochnicki. Everything I know I learned from you, the Jews, says Bronek. During the war I was nobody. Today I am wealthy. I own 4 or 5 houses, he brags.
He's got down 5 houses, he's got.
Very good.
Do you know you can reclaim your goose farm? He asks Jack. I know, says Jack, but I'd like to give it away to people who helped me during the war. Jack wants to visit another man who worked for his father's business. Zbyszek shows him the way.
A to Józik? Józik?
Tak. Borowski Józef.
Ja pamiętam cię dobrze.
Proszę?
Ja cię pamiętam dobrze,
Tak.
ja nie poznałem, ale pamiętam dobrze.
Tak.
Szkoda, że Felka
A
nie
czy
ma.
młody wiedzieć, kto pan jest?
A?
Czy młody wiedzieć, kto pan jest?
Kto ja jestem?
Tak.
Jankel Rubin z Pasiarni.
Jankel Rubin?
Siemela brat.
Tak.
Co zawsze pracowałeś u nas.
Ale...
Żyliśmy jak bracia.
To Jankel jest
To
pan?
Jankel.
Oj.
przed odejściem ja ci zostawię $20, będziesz miał dla siebie, co chcesz sobie kupić, to i spożywaj to. Okej. Okej, Jerzek.
Później.
Lepiej później niż nigdy.
Nie, ale panie Jantel, co będę mówił?
I have to explain something to you, says Joseph.
Nie wiem, dlaczego
After the war, people were saying bad things about us.
Przecież ja
But you know how much we did for your family,
a później
sneaking your stuff out of the ghetto. After the war, people started to say bad things about me. These were lies, but people believed it. It was about this fur that Shimel left here and later gave it to my mother. He told her, this is yours, you can keep it.
Miałem żal do ciebie. Słuchaj, żebym ja miałem żal do ciebie, to ja bym teraz nie przyszedł i bym ci nie dał prezent jeszcze.
Ja bardzo dziękuję tobie.
To masz z tego pamiętać, że nie mam żadnego żalu. Do widzenia, do widzenia.
Żeby się widzieli jeszcze. Bardzo pozdrów ode mnie tych wszystkich znajomych.
Do widzenia.
Do widzenia, do widzenia.
Looking for the old-timers, Jack meets a man who remembers the Jews.
Byli Żydzi bogate i byli biedne. To pierwsza sprawa. Druga sprawa. Handel, wszystek, przemysł był u Żydów w rękach. Wszyściutek. A od najmniejszego do największego.
Dlaczego oni nie pozwolili Polakom handlować?
Pozwolili, panie, każdemu można było. A u nich w rękach było wszystek materiał. Rozumie pan. Żydowskie byli firmy w Łodzi. Wszystkie firmy, na przykład te przemysłowe. Panie, w ostatnich latach, jeszcze jedno powiem, w ostatnich latach zaczęli nasze się buntować. Rozumiem pan. Buntować się, żeby sklepy polskie założyć. Założyli kilka sklepów polskich. Musiał ten polski sklepikarz kupić u Żyda w hurtowni.
Dlaczego on nie pojechał kupić za miastem
Oni nie mieli pieniędzy, to rzucali się, tak jak na przykład zaczynał sklep prowadzić, to miał parę groszy i poszedł.
Przepraszam,
proszę.
A Żydy, wszyscy Żydzi byli bogaci, nie było biedniejszych robotników, szewcy, krawcy, stolarzy.
Tak. Szewce, krawce, kowale, stolarze.
Ja pamiętam,
wszystko było.
Ja pamiętam.
Ja byłem myśliwy, znaczy tajny, nieoficjalny. Przywożę ja do niego.
Sarny. No. Myśmy kupili i sardę, zający.
Da, ja panu wytłumaczę.
Tak.
Więc to, koziołek, znaczy obliczył jego na 10 zł.
Tak.
Więc ja się zgadzam i mu oddać tego koziołka. Ale coś sobie pomiędzy sobą pogadali i mówią tak do mnie. Ty wiesz co, ja ci więc nie dam 8 zł. To była moja sprawa, nie.
Poprawdę powiedząc.
8 zł. Ja mówię tak, słuchajcie, zgodzone 10, to już płaccie 10.
Jak ojciec powiedział słowo, to nie tylko 2 złote, żeby było 1000 złotych.
Nie,
i później by było warto 100 złotych. Ojca słowo było wiadomo nie tylko w Brańsku.
Więc ja się zgodziłem i na te 8 złotych, no powiedziałem, miałem
bardzo ciężko tego słuchać.
Ciężko słuchać, ale...
Że ojciec się zgodził 10 złotych i później dał tylko 8.
Tak, dlatego, że może przeważył, ja tego nie pamiętam, może przeważył, może jemu waga nie pasowała, rozumie pan? Może waga nie pasowała powód tego, bo środki byli wyrzucone, jak u nas w naszym terenie, w naszym Brańsku. To było kilku takich, na przykład, Żydów, którzy mieli obrót, bo majorków to ja widziałem, kuferek był taki pieniędzy. Otworzył kuferek, mój ojciec poręczał się za którym nieodpowiedzialnie, rozumie pan? Nieodpowiedzialny był i on mówi tak, niech Franciszek przyjedzie i tylko powie, ja już daję pieniądze. Otworzył kuferek o taki i było pełno set. To ja widziałem to. I dlatego to mówię.
Bardzo ciężko słuchać. Oni mieli pieniądze, po pierwszym powiedząc, jak każdy jeden może zrozumieć, żeby kto miał kufer pieniędzy, to drugiemu nie pokaże ten kufer pieniędzy.
Listening to the old-timer, I find myself thinking about the roots of anti-Semitism. I imagine an argument like this one, erupting hundreds of years ago, when the first Jews settled in small Polish towns.
Dziękuję.
No to dziękuję bardzo, bardzo przyjemnie było panu zobaczyć.
Dziękuję. Dziękuję za odwiedziny.
I bardzo ciężko było słuchać, że ojciec oszukał pana.
Nie, ja nie powiem, że oszukał.
Tylko pokręcił.
Nie. Znaczy, z oka dawał mnie 10, rozumiesz? A potem zważył, że jemu nie wychodziło. Bardzo możliwe, tak było. Ja tego nie powiem.
Dobrze, ja przepraszam.
W takich rzeczach w handlu, panie, ja wcale nie dziwię.
Dobrze. Do widzenia, może jeszcze się zobaczymy. Może jeszcze się zobaczymy.
Daj Boże się zobaczyć.
To build a new life, the Jews had to be industrious. It didn't take long before envy and narrow-mindedness pushed them into isolation. And they believed in a wrong God. When the Holocaust began, the silence of their Polish neighbors made the Jews vulnerable. Jack was 16 when Germans invaded his Shtetl. He was a golden athletic boy wearing a fashionable leather jacket. A young successful man starting in business. He was 19 in 1942 when his family was forced to leave their house on the main street and move to the ghetto quarters at the outskirts of town. He was 20 when machine guns woke him in the middle of the night and the liquidation of the ghetto began. The Germans were taking the Jews by horse wagons to the nearest train station, then transporting them to the death camp of Treblinka. Jack begged his parents and sister to run before it was too late, but only the young and gutsy had the strength. Along with his brother, Jack fled to the forest. They knew one Polish family they could depend on. Before the war, Jack bought geese from their farm. The name of the farmer was Kozlowski. Now only his son is alive. Jack and his brother hid in their barn for 8 months.
Prosto na ścianie. Now, tutaj była ściana. Ojciec robił ścianę. I to było nasze mieszkanie. Tutaj była ściana i on zrobił tutaj drzwiczki. Jak trzeba, to można było, żeby można było uciekać tędy i w drugim chlewie uciekać. A jak oni przynieśli jedzenie, to ja tylko podniósł jedną deskę i podawali nam jedzenie. Ale ta cała mieszkania była nasze tutaj. I zawsze siedzieliśmy i widzieli, co się robi. Jak myśmy zrobili te karty, graliśmy, czasami było, że zapomnieliśmy te karty tutaj położyli, a w nocy misi przyszli i zjedli wszystko. I czasami, jak Boga kocham, misi przylecieli, jak spali, przez twarz, jak, to był, jak przylecieli, ale ja pamiętam, ten dach był słomem ukryty, ale okej, w zimową porę było bardzo zimno, ale myśmy nie narzekali, że zimno. Siedzieli, bo wiedzieliśmy, że my mamy dobre miejsce. Ale w lecie, jak było gorąco, to było tu tak gorąco, że nie można było oddychać, bo pod dachem, ja się wstydzę powiedzieć, zdjęliśmy nie tylko spodnie i te kalesony, bo nie można było wytrzymać, tak duszno było. Ale jak matka przychodziła z pola po południu, ona pamiętała i przyniosła nam dzbanek wody się napić. I nigdy nie zapominała o nas. Jak gorąco było, nie było czym oddychać, bo było pod dachem. Jak się zrobiło troszkę ciemniej, to myśmy klamali na dół do świniaków, żeby trochę powietrze złapać.
But when one barn became too dangerous to stay, Jack and his brother would look for another shelter. A couple of kilometers away was a farm owned by Jaśko Maksymiuk.
Tutaj na górze i myśmy przespali tę noc. Jak się śpi przez noc, nieźle, a na drugiej stronie ten chleb był dłuższy. Słyszeliśmy, że kury tam chodzą. Bierzemy jajka i bierze się slomek. Weźmiemy jedno jajko, co oni tam będą wiedzieć, jak się weźmie jajko i zjemy. Zrobiłem dziurkę. I tak się pije. Nie pije się prędko, bo to trzeba na cały dzień to jajko. Ja wziął jedne, on wziął jedne. I w slomie zawsze...
Jajko, trzymaj.
Jak oni wyczyszczają, zawsze będzie paryżarkie. Tutaj nie ma. Teraz mam. No. Się bierze do usta. Nie mieliśmy plan, że to trzeba jeść. I się gryzie, pomału, nieźle.
Soon this place too became unsafe. For several months, Jack and his brother hid in the woods.
Teraz się zdaje, że to ciasno dużo drzew. Nam się zdawało, że to jeszcze za mało. Trzeba szukać jeszcze lepsze miejsce. I chodziliśmy w drugim miejscu, gdzie znaleźć to porzeczki. Ja by to i teraz jadł. Jak to znaleźliśmy, to było złoto.
There were 14 of Jack's relatives and friends hiding in different places. Underneath each of them, the earth was crumbling. Like animals smelling the hunter, they had to escape the pastoral country. The only possible destination was the city of Białystok, where, surrounded by German tanks, the ghetto was still alive. In the winter of 1943, Jack collected money and bought a horse and a sleigh. He and his brother were the drivers. There was the brother's wife, their baby child, cousin Mayer. There were 7 friends, including 3 children who had lost their parents, and a couple who had escaped the Białystok ghetto, but in desperation were now going back. 14 people on the sleigh, under cover of winter darkness. Even today in my sleep, I count them all, says Jack. We are riding the road that the sleigh took in 1943. The question that will never be answered is how the Germans learned about Jack's plan. There were only 5 soldiers overseeing the area, and it was unheard of to see them on the road in the middle of a sub-zero winter night. With the help of a local villager, we find a place on the road where it all happened.
Myśmy jechali z tej strony jechaliśmy. To nie wiem, to ktoś powiedział, ktoś jedzie. Naturalnie się patrzy. To myśmy mówili między sobą, może spekulanty jadą do Białegostoku. To na pewno co jadą, kto tam będzie jechał teraz w nocy. A ta sania się zbliża. I ja widzę, że 2 konie, nie jeden. Jak ja zobaczył 2 konie, to już u mnie coś bierze mnie długo was to powiedzieć, nim to faktycznie było. Jak ja widział 2 konie, to już brat był, faktycznie był, zaraz, brat był, to nie mogę, jechaliśmy z tej strony, brat był z lewej strony u mnie i myśmy się patrzyli. I to ja widział, jak jeden coś się pochylał i coś bierze w ręce. I kozyrek, daszek, było dużo śnieg, jakby błyszczyło. Oni jeszcze nie strzelali, ja skoczył i zaczął i strzelanie z maszyny karabynowych, ale wtedy zaś nic się nie boisz, tylko lecisz.
His goal was to reach Białystok's ghetto, 15 kilometers away, where he saw his only chance to survive. But going alone was too dangerous, and only a Polish farmer could offer the protection he needed. So I started to knock on this window.
Ale na pewno w tej, bo to koło drzwi. Ja bym nie napukał od drzwi.
He asked, who is it?
Ja mówiłem, ja chcę się...
I said, I'm looking for the route to Sherenosy. I already know the road, but I wanted him to come out. I said, I'm lost. Would you come out and show me? He said, okay. 2 minutes later, he comes out. He shows me the road. There was a road sign. Now I decide to change the tone of my voice. Could I come to your house to warm up? Are you a little Jew? He asked. I said yes. He said, come in. I told him I had 300 marks in my pocket. I will give you 290, and I keep 10 for my first kilo of bread, I said. I will walk behind you, and you will lead me to Białystok. I told him to carry a stick and walk ahead of me. When you see Germans, turn the stick to the right, I told him. So we went.
Jak już przyszedłem do Białegostoku, też nie wiedziałem. A jeden raz idę tam w getcie już i powiedzieli, że złapali Żydów z Brańska i to byli te gęsiarzy. Ja się pytał, wiele zabili? 13. To jest koniec.
Everyone is on the street when Bransk celebrates Pentecost. With no Jews living here, Bransk is entirely Christian. Every home on the procession route receives the body of God. A year ago, Zbyszek Romaniuk was elected vice mayor of the town. But there are clouds over his political future. Some people are resentful of his Jewish research. For about a year, from time to time, Zbyszek tells me, inscriptions of different content appear on the walls of my staircase. Whoever does it has an intention to offend me. For example, here we have an inscription Goy, followed by the word Jew. Next to it is a swastika. Here is a signpost, this way to the Jew. In a couple of weeks, Bransk will celebrate its 500th anniversary. As the local historian, Zbyszek is responsible for the program of the celebration. It was his idea to create a monument reflecting the history of the town. It will be erected in the middle of what used to be a market square when the Jews lived in Bransk. The stone has just been delivered. The idea of the monument, explains Zbyszek, is that 3 of its sides will be filled with inscriptions, and the 4th left blank for the future. The 3 sides point to the most important moments in Bransk history. This side, for example, tells us that from the 16th through 18th century, we were the capital of the entire region, the seat of local parliament and courts. The other side speaks about the symbolic victory of Christianity over paganism in this area. The Polish Prince Bolesław defeated the soldiers of Komas here. There is no mention of the Jewish history. The town council is about to adopt Zbyszek's program of festivities. I invite myself to the meeting. How much of the Jewish history will be included in your program, I ask. I have enough aggravation already because of this subject, says Zbyszek. Unfortunately, people here don't understand these matters. I have come to the conclusion that our community is still very primitive. The word Jew is still pronounced in a whisper. It's immediately associated with a pot of gold and with dollars. It is very unpleasant to see all the graffiti in my staircase with the word Jew and the arrow pointing to my door. It has all been annoying to me. I am a Christian and a good Catholic, and I am not any less a Polish patriot than the people who oppose me. They must feel guilty, or they must be very primitive to do things like that. A wise man does not trade in stupid gossips. That's enough on this subject.
Ale żeby coś poprawić, ale Zbyszek, żeby coś
But
poprawić,
Zbyszek, isn't this an occasion to use the energy of wise people and speak publicly to enlighten those who are ignorant? Whoever visits me, Zbyszek responds, is labeled a Jew. Whatever I do, it is in the interest of the Jews. There is even a gossip that the monument we are erecting will be a monument to Jewish history. Please don't be discouraged, Zbyszek, one of the town council member advises. It is a small group that is against you. Speaking publicly is the best solution. I am a public servant, says Zbyszek, and I have to act accordingly. My private life is separate. I will still continue my private interest, but what I say as a public official must be balanced. But what about history, I say? There are no two histories. I am also saying that there is one history, responds Zbyszek. I would never say as vice mayor that the Jews were never living here and say something else as a private person. Of course not, I agree. That would be very unintelligent of you. I am not concerned about what you are saying, but about what you are not saying. But Zbyszek says that Jews are no longer here, and he cannot promote the Jewish subject in a town that is 100% Gentile. But you are one of those Gentiles, I point out. Why are you interested in the Jews if they are no longer here? Because I am interested in culture, he responds, and perhaps other people look at the Jews only in a financial light. I am interested in their life and their contributions to the history of this town. So they were here for 430 years, I say. Don't you believe that their contribution to this town deserves public recognition? Yes, but I believe it is a delicate subject. I am not even talking about the 16th century, I say. I'm saying that in 1939, 65% of people here were Jewish. So in a 5-minute speech about Bransk, can you spend a minute on the Jews, or is it too much? Zbyszek, you have a problem. There are two of you, two Romaniuks. I do not agree, he says. I cannot make people listen to what they don't want to hear.
Mimo różnej polityki, Bransk przez te 500 lat pozostał polski i jako taki powinien być przez następne stulecia. Tak nam dopomóż Bóg.
In his proclamation speech, Zbyszek does not mention the Jews. Bransk celebrates its 500th anniversary. Fiddler on the Roof by the local military orchestra is the only Jewish element of festivities, not counting one box of Judaica in an exhibit of historic documents curated by Zbyszek. am at the end of a 3-year-long journey with Zbyszek. We have discovered how fragile are the memories of Jewish life in Bransk. I take some of these memories with me on a piece of film. I leave my friend Zbyszek in Bransk, the lonely guardian of my people's past.
Funding for Frontline is provided by the annual financial support of PBS viewers like you, with additional funding for this program from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.